Wrestling fans, promoters, wrestlers, and anyone who enjoys pro wrestling now have something new to be excited about. The Wrestling Fans International Association, the WFIA, is back. WFIA is an association that exists to promote, grow, and support professional wrestling throughout the world. Membership is free. Your membership includes a free digital bi-monthly publication of the Wrestling Fan News newsletter, association updates, voting privileges, and much more. Please go to thewfia.org, that's THEWFIA.org, and become a member today.
I want to welcome a very special guest, wrestling legend, James Beard. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great, Rick. Good to be with you.
Thank you very much for joining me today. We're going to go all over, I guess, in the wrestling world and your career. So, all right. I want to know first, before we get started into all the good stuff, but were you interested in professional wrestling as a child, and what got you interested in working in the world of wrestling?
Yeah, I started watching wrestling when I was just a small kid. I mean, back in those days, we didn't have any cable. We were just on an antenna. So I was watching Dallas, when we could get it. Sometimes it was kind of hard to receive it from about 90 miles away. And my folks watched it. In those days, there wasn't a whole lot of cable and stuff. So you didn't have a lot of variety of things to watch. And that was one of those things that they just happened to watch. Every Saturday they had a studio wrestling in Dallas on Channel 4, and then on Saturday night to Channel 11. That was the big show, and so I grew up being a fan, I guess. And then they ended up taking me to the Sportatorium a couple of times when I was about 8 or 9 years old, and that was my first exposure there. So I got hooked pretty early.
What was it like going to the Sportatorium as a fan early on? That was a place I always wanted to visit. Going through. I never got a chance, obviously.
No, that was what now? I'm sorry.
What was it like going there as a fan?
Oh, the fan?
Yeah.
Well, of course, I was just a kid, so it was it was bigger than life. I'd been watching it on a black and white TV, and then all of a sudden everything's in color. And they're the real guys there. And I saw Bull Curry and Danny McShane and Red Bastien. Johnny Valentine, those guys, and I don't remember everybody that was on that first card, but it was just kind of it was pretty awe inspiring. I can tell you that, and the Sportatorium atmosphere, even for a kid, that was something special. I noticed that right off. I always remember that. It was just a special atmosphere to be there.
It's one of those arenas I always wanted to visit, and I guess visually from watching World Class and USWA that it is my favorite arena of all time, but I never got to travel to Texas to see that. And it's
an amazing place. Not a bad seat in the house. I mean, it wasn't a pretty building by any means. It was in fact, it was kind of ugly, but
I've heard.
yeah, and no air conditioning and no heat. To speak of, really, and it could get uncomfortable sometimes, but the atmosphere, the whole thing, the feel of the place was something really, it's hard to describe. It was hard. It was just incredible.
So what got your interest in working in the world of professional wrestling, and where did you start off?
Well, I mean, I like I said, I was a fan and I watched all the time, but I was in the music business and playing music.
Really?
Playing music around the Dallas area. I got to know some of the guys, and eventually they would get to talking to me and finding out that I had been watching for a long time, and I kind of had a clue about things, and they just started kind of goading me into it. I think you'd be pretty good. I had an athletic background also. I played baseball and basketball in college, and it just it was just one of those things that just kind of one thing led to another, and then finally, actually, Bruiser Brody had a lot to do with it. He kind of pushed me into it, just kind of told me you're going to try this, and I did, and stuck my toe in the business for a little while, and did a few little spot shows and that kind of thing, and the next thing I know, I'm working at the Sportatorium.
Was World Class your first promotion that you worked for?
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
yeah. I mean, other than some little podunk thing around,
Right. Right. So, what was some of the earliest guys that you worked with? I mean, what year did what year was that around about that you
86.
started? 86. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, that was a great time for World Class. I mean,
Well, it really is kind of past the big time.
right.
The big years were 83, 84, 85, and things had, I guess, there'd been a little kink in the armor, I guess, by the time I started, and then I got a little taste of it, but not as much as I would have liked to.
Right.
It was still a lot of fun, a lot of great guys, and a lot of the world class, the people that was world class people that were still around, but I missed out on some of the really glory years. I knew a lot of the guys from back then and kind of hung around with some of them, but not actually working with them in the ring.
One of the things I guess I'll skip around, but one of the things that you were there for was the transition from World Class to USWA.
I was, yes.
And to me, I feel that was like one of the most underrated eras of the company, so to speak. It was the booking. I guess that was booked by Eric Embry, correct, at that time period?
Yeah, it was really interesting because things were really kind of bad. I mean, things had gotten really slow. The attendance was bad. Eric took over the booking, and it really didn't have a lot to work with other than some of the guys that kind of hung around the Dallas area. The regular guys, and not that there was anything wrong with them, but it needed something new, something fresh, and Eric just kind of took it upon himself. He at the time, I kind of questioned it a little bit. I was, is Eric doing this and Eric doing that, and then it started working, and it turned himself into this really hated heel into the hero, and he just did a magnificent job of it. And of course, since then I've gotten to know Eric very well and gotten to be really good buddies with him, and I really appreciate his mind as much as anything. He really did. He did really turn the thing around for a while.
I thought it was just kind of it was like wild and crazy, some of it. You know what I mean? During the and that's what I really enjoyed about it, because it was just the crowds were. Sometimes you'd watch and the crowds weren't always hot, but during that era, I just thought that the crowds were like on fire. You know what I mean? A lot of the time.
Yeah, he really created a lot more emotion than it been. It kind of, like I said, it kind of gotten stale, and the crowds were down, and then he took over and started booking the way he was booking it, and he got it built back up, and the crowds were really into it, and then of course they really got emotional about the thing when USWA started becoming involved, and it was just really well done.
Mm-hmm. Of course, a lot of the very early USWA has been uploaded to the Savoldi network as of late. I guess they own the rights to a lot of it, and they've probably uploaded the first 10 episodes. I know more are coming. This show is going to be on there as well. And I'm going to tell you, going back and watching, it's probably been a good 20 or 30 years. It's just it's really fun to watch some of the talent that came through there, and some of them went on to bigger things and say WWF and WCW and such. I mean, he had a thing for working with like a lot of really good guys, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, when you look back on it, some of the guys that were in USWA at the time, and then later on, even in Global, a lot of those guys are gone on and done really well, and I'm really proud of that. I'm proud of what we were able to accomplish there, and some of the guys that I got to work with, and even kind of help get to that point. And it was. It was a great experience, and I still close to a lot of them.
Right. Now, one of the questions, of course, I interviewed Craig Johnson last week, and I had a lot of fun talking with him. from Global, and I guess he was there for a brief period during the USWA period as well.
Yeah, yeah, good guy.
Yeah, he's a great guy.
Yeah.
He's a lot of fun to talk to. One of the things he talked about was working with Steve Austin early on. So I'm sure that
Yeah.
you also had that opportunity.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah. He
Yeah.
worked some of Steve's first matches, and it's hard to imagine now, but I see some of the old tapes and things, and he was green as a gourd. It was a long ways from Stone Cold, but he had that promise, and you could see that right off the bat. You knew that
Yeah.
if anybody was going to make it, he was going to be the guy.
Yeah. And the storyline with him and Chris Adams, I thought
Right.
was
Right.
excellent,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Chris was his trainer, and
Yep.
some of that was kind of a shoot.
Yeah.
It kind of turned into that anyway. But yeah, that was a great angle and worked out really well for him.
Now, doing research for this episode, I discovered that you worked in Japan quite a bit as well.
Yeah, in fact, a lot of those years I was gone as much as I was in Dallas.
Yeah.
I'd go to Japan and work 6-8 weeks and come back and do TV in Dallas, and then I'd go back and do that. I did that for several years.
That was the SWS promotion mostly.
Yeah, I worked for them. Yes, I did.
And they had the affiliation with the WWF for quite a bit, right?
That's correct. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I was going over there and doing tours. I'd do a tour and like I said, I'd stay over and work in the training center, and then I'd do the next tour, and then I'd come home. When it initially started, the idea for SWS was a strong style promotion, and they were bringing in guys that not WWE guys, AFF at the time, but guys that kind of fit that mode.
Mhm.
From the States and Canada and other places. And eventually, Tenu made that deal with Vince, and they started sending guys over every tour. So I was working with all the top WWF guys, and at the same time I was working in Dallas. So it was kind of a cool situation for me. It ended up kind of being the thing that tore that company apart, because a lot of the Japanese guys, the traditional guys, didn't care for the deal, and they didn't like the fact that it kind of gotten off track of what they intended for it to be, and they felt like the WWF involvement was something that kind of took away from it. So it turned into a deal where they ended up splitting, and Kendo Nagasaki was the guy that brought me over.
Mhm.
He took a group and splintered from that, and of course when he did that, I went with him. So and that ended up really good for me also, because I got a lot more freedom to book and involvement in the creative side and that kind of thing. But it was a great experience working over in Japan. That really made my career for me.
So you said it was more like a strong style promotion, but it didn't last very long. It was only a couple of years, I think, right? Maybe.
Correct. Well, yeah. What happened was that when they did the split, he continued on a little bit, I think, as SWS, and then he changed it to War.
Okay.
Yeah. So it was really the same promotion. He just changed, I think, maybe because of all the heat that they were getting because of the WWF involvement, I think.
It was Wrestling and Romance, I believe, was the
Exactly. Yeah, that's right.
Okay. I almost forgot. It's been so long since I've heard that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. That was just an extension off of the SWS.
And so you're talking about like shoot style. So it was kind of very similar to say like the UWF or UWFI was in Japan, like kind of like it treating it like it was like a actual competition as opposed to the showman type part.
Yeah. The original, like I said, the original idea of SWS was a real strong style.
Mhm.
And they even had some of Fujiwara's guys come in.
Right.
They were shoot guys, and they got involved with AAA over in Mexico, and it was a lot of fun. I mean, we had a real variety of things going on there, especially with the WWF guys coming in and all too. But it really caused a lot of internal turmoil amongst some of the main guys, I guess, that were involved in the original concept, and that's when I split, and that's why I ended up changing to WAR.
Right. Um, so hang on, my notes. All right, so back into the USWA and them backing out of Texas, and then basically, did you go to Memphis at all, or travel with the USWA at all, or do you primarily in Dallas?
No, I was going to Japan all the time, so I
Okay,
only worked TV in Dallas when they came through,
and then
and and
oh,
I was
sorry.
and again I was there off and on because I'd be gone for so long sometimes, you know. But I worked with them at the Sportatorium in Dallas, but I
Right.
didn't work for USWA in Memphis until later on.
So then you were you right on board when Global decided to start up?
Yeah, in fact, I remember I just gotten back from a trip in Japan, and I got a call from Akbar, and he told me what was going on, and they said that there was a new group coming into the Sportatorium, and they wanted me to work with them. They were making a big deal out of me being in Japan because they wanted to be kind of, well, they were global, GWF global, right?
Right.
So they were making a big deal out of me being over there, and they didn't mind that I was gone because they could talk about it, and you know it sounded like something big to them because I was representing them then over there, even though I
Right.
really wasn't. It was kind of a cool situation for me, but yeah, I started up with them from the very beginning.
So what was like the business like over there? Because I remember, speaking with uh, Johnson and or John, whichever. Um, it was basically like the businessman was. Then they presented themselves as being a international organization,
Yeah.
and basically they're just based out of Texas. But it was
Well,
like, you know,
actually, Joe Pedicino started it,
correct. Yes.
and he's out of Georgia, and the the word in the beginning was there was a lot of money involved,
Hmm.
a big man and all, and somehow I guess that didn't turn out to be exactly true, which is that's wrestling, that's the way it works. But the thing about it is it got a good start, and we taped a lot of stuff with a lot of talent came in, and a lot of young guys that you recognize from later on, that started there and did really well. But yeah, it was all filmed right there at the Sportatorium in Dallas.
Yep.
The,
What did you
they
think of
called
the
it the global dome at that time.
Yeah, what did you think of the rebranding of the Global Dome for television,
I,
basically?
well, I guess I kind of understand. They wanted a fresh start and that kind of thing. I think that was the idea. You know, everybody knew it was a sportatorium,
Yeah.
and
Yes.
and I think the history of the sportatorium would have probably served them a little bit better than calling it something else. But that's just me.
Yeah, I always thought they should have kept it. And, I mean, the sport, to me, it was legendary, even
Yeah.
at that time period, building. And I was just a young kid watching. It was, I guess, GWF and USWA and world class was a very important part of my childhood every day after school. So
You don't know how many people I've heard that from. It's
really.
amazing. Yeah, I didn't think of it at the time so much, that we were reaching so many people. But because, well, for one thing, ESPN wasn't a big deal at the time.
No.
It was kind of getting started really itself.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we were on that, and a lot of it we weren't happy with because they chopped it up so much. If you could see the stuff that we actually recorded and taped the way it was actually done, you'd probably liked it even better. But they edited it quite a bit, I think, because of that afternoon time slot. And
Right.
so a lot of us weren't really crazy about that. But later on, I find out, it's sort of reaching so many people. I remember uh, I'd just gotten to Japan one time, and I got over there and met Barry Darsaw and Demolition. And I think
Smash. Yeah.
Brian was with him at the time.
Hmm.
Brian Adams
Yep.
and Barry just met him at Narita at the airport, and Barry said, "Man, we've been watching you this yesterday afternoon on TV, and we were in London." And I'm like, "What?" You
They
know,
got out
and,
there. Wow.
yeah, and that's when it hit me that man, this thing's really getting out there. And since then, I've heard so many people, probably your age, that just told me that same thing. Man, we used to watch you guys on TV every afternoon. That was our thing to do. And it's just it just kind of hits that yeah, you were really getting something effect out there, and didn't really realize it at the time.
And for that period, probably when World Class to GWF was on ESPN through all that USWA stuff, that was probably the peak of my watching professional wrestling on TV. So probably like early teens up until like, I don't know, when I graduated. I think it went off air during my senior year of high school. So
I think we probably, even though WWF was really hitting it, starting to hit big in those days, and had already really hit big, I guess. I think we probably had an effect on a lot of kids becoming wrestling fans,
yeah,
because that was their exposure to it, and it kind of freaks me out a little bit when I think about it that way. But it's kind of cool.
I started probably watching 1984, and then I don't remember when wrestling started on ESPN, but I think it was probably 87, 88 was a Legends of World Class show.
Yeah, something like that.
Something like that. So I started watching it on there, and it didn't really hit me at first, really, you know what I mean? But after a little while, then I really started to get into it, because I think it was different than what I was watching outside of WWF and probably the NWA. You know what I mean?
Well, and that's the thing. That's the thing that I'm kind of proud of it in a way, because I think we really were an alternative.
Right.
It's kind of one of those things that's missing today, that there's not an alternative out there, but that has a different style and a different approach to the business. And I think that was one of the things that kind of, I guess, got people's attention, and even charmed some younger people, I guess, a little bit. And there was a lot of fresh faces there too. A lot of guys that got their start with the Global, and they were new, to a lot of people. So
yeah,
I think there's a lot of things that we can be proud of about of what we accomplished with Global, no matter what now.
I mean, you guys gave the Patriot like his big exposure before going to WCW or WWF.
Oh yeah. Dale was kind of the bell cow for Global, and
yeah,
the perfect hero. I mean, he was the perfect guy for that. He was fresh enough, even though he had some experience, with AWA and all.
yes,
but he was fresh enough as a performer, as a wrestler. But he was new, he was different, and I don't think anybody had a matched hero champion, at the time, that was that big, and he was a perfect guy for that.
yeah. I quite enjoyed him, and then of course came over to WCW. That's the thing, Leslie. You made a point there. There isn't really a true alternative these days.
Yeah.
Nothing that's a little bit more old school. I think before we hit record, there was, we mentioned a company that you were part of that was
Yeah.
somewhat a good alternative, which I thoroughly enjoyed. I thought for a few years that the current NWA was right on track, and then the pandemic happened, and then once they came back,
Yeah. Well, if you knew me, you would know that that's kind of been my passion to create an alternative of some kind.
yeah,
I've been kind of stubborn about it, I guess, in some ways. I had chances to go and work with other people at times, and bigger situations, and I always wanted to create something that was different, and something that was a little more traditional based, I guess. And we were doing that with SWE. We were getting that, and having some success with it. I won't get into what caused it to go down, because it's kind of a sore spot with me, but it was cooking and doing very well. We were drawing 500 to 700 people everywhere we went, which is great for independent at the time.
Absolutely. And I remember the first time I turned into it, it was on YouTube, and it was probably the third episode I found, and
yeah,
I was amazed at the amount of talent that was there I mean, there was some people that were going back and forth between SWE and the NWA. Like Tim Storm was there, Thunder Rosa was there,
Right.
a couple other people. So it got me real excited. You know what I mean? It was kind of,
Yeah,
it seemed like it was sort of a relation, sort of like a loose relationship, sort of.
yeah. One of the original cast of characters, I guess, were basically all people that I trusted and knew.
Mhm.
I had pretty much free-handed putting all that together. It got a little, I guess, out of my hands a little later on to some degree, but when we were really cooking, those were people that I knew that could do what I wanted done, and we were doing it. We were doing some really good stuff. I'm working with a group right now in Texas called Texas Style Wrestling, and we're
Okay.
trying to get back to that right now. I kind of got involved with them in the middle of some things, and they were kind of doing it a little bit different, and now we're trying to get on that track, and I'm determined. I'm either going to be proven wrong or right, one way or the other. But I'm going to keep doing it until I can't anymore.
Is there, say, TV series or YouTube series for that Texas style wrestling, or not yet?
Yeah. There's some stuff on streaming. Yeah, so you
Okay.
you can find that. Yeah, yeah,
I'm gonna
and
look
and
for it.
and, and right now they're showing, I think, a lot of stuff that was filmed before I started working with them. But we're getting into a more episodic storytelling type things now with that style more prevalent. I'm hoping in the next few months that we're kind of back on that track.
I hope it works out as well, because
Well, thank you. I really believe that there's a base out there, a fan base out there that wants that, and
oh,
and and that's what I'm shooting for.
you're speaking to one right now. I'm telling you.
I
So,
hear it all the time. People saying, we miss that, we miss that. We want to believe in it. And for some reason, the people with the money don't seem to want to listen to those people, and I don't get it.
it's one of those things where they want the people that are going to spend the big bucks, like you know, I hate to say it, money marks, I guess, sort of speak.
Yeah,
People that are
maybe
going to
that's
spend
maybe it. Yeah,
tons of money on merchandise.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, I'm always like, I don't watch a lot of modern wrestling, to be honest with you. I'll watch
I don't
the
either.
big
Yeah,
shows, maybe. It's kind of hard to watch. I do keep up with, say, the NWA or David Marquez's, championship wrestling from Hollywood and stuff, because
yeah,
it's probably the closest thing to actual professional wrestling that is around today.
yeah, yeah. Well, I think
Yeah.
Dave comes from that same thing too, like the NWA base. He's got that in
Right.
his bloodstream, kind of like I do, and I like. I pretty much like what Billy's doing with NWA in a lot of cases. I think I'm hoping that they're successful because that's I guess I'm one of those guys that just kind of grew up as an NWA guy, and I'm pulling for them,
Yeah.
and I got some friends there too. I want to see them do well.
Well, there's a couple guys that are from up my way that work down there that I'm really happy to see them on their television program. Wrecking Ball Legursky, who I
Yeah,
think is an absolute gem in the world of professional wrestling. He's a great guy on top of it. And, seeing him on my TV every week is very exciting. So, because
yeah,
he works the Northeast Indies, that's where he
yeah,
comes from.
yeah.
So, let's see. I want to ask you a question. This is
We
more
got off on a
engaging.
tangent, didn't we?
Yeah, no, it's fine. I mean, it's kind of what the show is about. It's a classic talk program, so
Yep.
I'm excited
Uh,
about that. So, I want to talk about you had several matches with Bruce Pritchard, I guess,
oh my.
involvement in. Come on, and one of them ended up in a boxing match as well. So let's
Yeah,
talk
yeah.
about this.
Well, that was Eddie Gilbert's idea.
Yeah, another gem. We'll talk about Eddie soon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Eddie came up with this. He came to me one day and he said, I want you to drop refereeing for a while, and I'm going to start this angle with you and Bruce." And Bruce was working down there in Global with us as a manager and been
Yep.
doing some commentary and that kind of thing. And I said, "Well, okay. I mean, whatever you want, Eddie." And it started out. There was a battle royal, and I was the referee outside the ring. Bruce had a couple of guys, a Dark Patriot, and was Doug Gilbert.
Doug Gilbert, yep.
Yeah, and I can't remember who all he had. I think. Anyway, somewhere during the match, Bruce jumps up on the apron to help one of his guys. And I reached up to stop him, and when I did, I pulled his pants down. and of course, there's Bruce in his string bikini underwear, and everybody laughed, and I laughed, and as I'm walking off, all his guys jumped me, and that's how the angle started. And Eddie came back down and ran them off and that kind of thing. And anyway, we had a series of matches. I don't remember now. We had some tag matches with Eddie and
Terry Garvin, I believe.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and Mike Davis was on the other side with Doug, and then we had a boxing match, like you said, and then the blow off was a match between Bruce and I, and you had to pull the other guy's pants down because it was, that's how it started, right? And Bill Irwin was the special referee. And I don't remember exactly how we got to it, but somehow I ended up winning it. But that was a classic. you and John Layfield, he wouldn't let that go, man. He was been looking for that tape forever. I hope somebody burned it.
I mean, I don't know. Let me tell you that the Savoldis are uploading a lot of GWF stuff.
So I'm afraid somebody's going to find it one of these days. Yeah, and if he ever finds it, I'm done.
One of the videos that they recently uploaded, like a compilation of outrageous gimmick matches, and one of them, of course, was the bungee match that took place in Global.
Oh God,
yeah,
you're all the good stuff, aren't you?
Well, this is getting the weird period of Global.
Yeah, that was a Global thing also a little later on.
Yeah,
it was that was Gray Pearson's idea. Gray Pearson had taken over Global after Joe Pedicino and them had kind of run out of money and left. We were down for, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 weeks is all.
Okay.
And one of the main sponsors of World Class there in Dallas, it was a big automobile company, came to us and said, "Look, we're gonna help you guys get back on your feet." And Westway Ford, Joe Teague is the guy's name, and so we started up pretty quick after that again. And Gray was kind of the I guess the new owner at the time.
Yeah,
and that was his idea. He came up with some really weird ideas, and that was one of them. And when he came to me and told me about this thing, I said, "Gray, I'm not getting up on that thing. First, well, for one thing, I hate heights, and the other thing is that I know there's going to be a technical problem because there's no way in the world you're going to get this thing set up and everything's going to work the way it's supposed to work." Well, sure enough, Akbar and I we went into the dressing room and watched it on the monitor. I wasn't about to stay out there, and before they even got the thing up in the air, the camera inside the little thing that they took up and had the match in, little booth looking thing, cage or whatever you want to call it. The camera went out on it, so they were shooting it off of the ground and everything, and it was horrible. The lighting was terrible, and of course, you can't have a good match in something like that. There's no way, But it turned out to be funny and infamous, I guess, in a way. and then Mike Davis did his moon rock drive, and everybody remembers it. So I guess in some ways it's a success if you look at it that way.
In a way, I mean, it's kind of to me that was bad for Mike Davis because at that time he had a pretty interesting career as a really good wrestler and talent.
Oh, great, you know what I mean? Great wrestler. Yes.
And then he just came back with going away in the bungee, hitting the moon, coming back, and
got him a moon rock. Yeah.
Ended up in a weird gimmick. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, he was doing this gimmick of Maniac Mike, and
right,
and he was off the wall with anything. And you never knew what sometimes he would come out and he'd be some other wrestler, or he'd have one thing, have a pair of underwear on and two different kinds of boots, or it just anything I could think of would be crazy. And he's such a great worker. He was so incredible in the ring. He could get away with that kind of stuff. But he was fun to work with for sure, and a great guy, a really close friend too.
Hey, when I spoke to Danny Brown over the summer, and he could not say enough good things. I guess they were pretty tight as friends, and they wrestled at, I think it was the first Starcade or second Starcade, one of those,
Yeah,
for the junior title. And
yeah,
Danny
that's
would
right.
go on and on for how great he was. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. He was world class, for sure. He was a great. And then he and Tommy Lane, and then Alan.
York.
Yeah, they had the RPMs. They were tag team. But
I thought they
Mike,
were a great tag team.
yeah,
The
Mike,
RPMs. Yeah,
yeah, they were. And Mike was just an incredible worker. He was fun to be around, and a good, like I said, he's a wonderful friend also.
yeah. The one thing I thought that, like, when he went to WWF, he ended up just doing jobs the whole time there. And I'm watching, I know who the hell this guy is. You know what I mean? I'm like, they should really be doing more with this guy than just having him lay down there in a 2-minute squash or something.
Well,
But
a lot of guys, that happened to a lot of guys though.
yeah,
They in the territories they had done really well, and were well known, and they go up there and they just didn't get used. They basically just did jobs, and that's just that. That's the sad part about it coming down to just one place to go. Pretty much to make money.
Yeah.
And there were a lot of guys that went up there, and that was kind of the last straw for them, I think.
Yeah. I mean, I just I go back, I see Steve Regal doing jobs, or whoever else, you know what I mean? Even like guys like Iron Mike Sharp was a name prior to going there, and he went there, but he spent a long time there doing that position. Some guys couldn't hack it or didn't care for it or whatever, but there's other guys that they would collect that paycheck and not care, I guess, as much.
Well, yeah, I'm making the money, and nothing wrong with that either.
Right.
I've got a lot of friends that did that, and I mean, like my old buddy Dusty Wolf, he did jobs for him for years, and he made a living, and I guess in the end, that's the bottom line. That's what you want to. That's what you want to come out of this being able to do, and it doesn't really matter whether you win or lose at that point.
I spoke with Dusty over the summer as well, interviewed him, and I got to tell you that he is a great guy. He was a fun interview, and
did he tell any lies?
He didn't seem to care that. I don't think so.
If you said anything about me, it was a lie. I can tell you that right now.
I'm trying to remember. I got to go back and listen fully, but he didn't seem to care to be working up there and just laying down all the time. So
yeah, when he wrote a book, and I told him that after it came out, I said, you should have just named the book "Lies About James."
Speaking about
great
books,
guy, good. Yeah. That's just good friend. We've known each other a long time.
Speaking about books, you wrote a book as well, somewhat recently, correct?
Well, it's actually almost been 10 years now.
It's been 10 years? Well, for some more reason.
Yeah, I'm actually working on a second book right now. I'm planning on having it out this next year. But
okay.
The first book is basically about the guys I worked with in Texas, mostly my relationship with those guys, and some other things involved in there too as well. But that book has been pretty well received for the most part. I've enjoyed the experience of having it out there.
Okay. Is it still available? Like I can just go to
get it on
Amazon
Amazon. Yeah.
So what was your experiences with Joe Pedicino during your time there?
With who? I'm sorry.
Joe Pedicino.
Oh, I got along with Joe real well. I didn't know him well. I mean, he's one of those guys that came in from Georgia, and I'd seen some of his stuff on TV that he'd done, he produced, and that kind of thing, and I liked his ideas. I mean, he really had a kind of an eclectic mind about wrestling. We didn't just talk about Global, we talked. He had a segment on there where he talked about what was going on everywhere in wrestling, and like he was recognizing, that we're not the only thing around. It kind of had a real feel to it. So I like Joe. I got along with him well. I was, like I said, I was gone a lot. I'd be in Japan more than I was here, so I didn't really get the chance to socialize or that kind of, get knowing beyond the work situation for the most part. But I liked him.
Yeah.
Good guy.
I thought he had a great mind for professional wrestling as a whole. While the business was changing, he always tried to create
very creative.
Good.
Yeah.
What about obviously the Max Andrews? Any interactions with Max?
Well, just from the I guess kind of peripheral interaction. I didn't even know who Max was, to be honest with you, until I found out he was actually the guy running all the syndication and everything. And that really didn't come about until after Joe left. And Max had all that syndication and the control of all of it. So he seemed like he was a lot more interested in producing golf TV than he was wrestling, but he was a businessman, and that's what I remember about him. It just really came across to me as just being all about business and not so much a love for the product, I think.
He came in with the USWA, and then I guess was it the falling out between him and Jarrett, and then he
he was involved in all the syndication stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
There were I think someone told me one time there was over 200 outlets at one time. So there was a lot of stuff. There was a lot of stuff out there.
I do remember for a short period that I would get it on a localized television station as well, like syndicated.
Right. Those
like a low power. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like a Saturday mornings, I guess it would air on a low power UHF station. So, that was the period with like Voodoo the Rasta Man and other such things like that. It was still, I still enjoyed it because it was wrestling at that time period, and it was from Dallas, and it was technically the Sportatorium.
Yeah. Yep.
So,
yep.
What about the crowds? Now the crowds I know I've heard were as low as something like 75 at one point. Like the people just
remember
kind of waning.
I don't remember it ever getting that low. I can remember it getting down to like a couple of hundred maybe or something like that.
Okay. I'm just going by what I've researched. Yeah.
Yeah, I did. I don't think it ever got to that point. I don't remember us ever seeing it that low.
Right.
It probably a couple of hundred people at one time, and then it started building back up again. Even with Global, we had some full houses. And they did a deal for a while where they were just letting people in free, but they were paying for parking, which was kind of. It's kind of a backhanded way of getting money, but we started drawing a lot of people that way. You start to get them in there, and then they get used to coming, and then they'll start paying again. And that's kind of like
it's like a carload of people for like, I don't know, you charge $10 for
like going to drive-in.
You can fit as many. Yeah. It's not a bad way to think about it, I guess. No.
And we like I said, we started having some pretty big houses,
right.
And then. If you think about that and think about concessions and all that kind of thing, they were making money.
Yeah. When they ended up ultimately wrapping it up with Global that you were aware of?
The what now? I'm sorry.
What ended up wrapping it up with Global? I mean, when did you leave? And did you leave like when it just went out of business? Or
when it went out? Yeah. I stayed there till it was done, and I guess we were probably a couple of months, and then another group came in and did TV there for several months, maybe a year.
I think Jim Crockett came back there, and
it was right. Yeah, Crockett came in again after that, and then another group came in after that. So, so there was a couple other things. Crockett kind of restarted NWA there for a while.
Yes,
and I worked for them too. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I wasn't sure if you actually did work with them. I would after Global went, we stopped getting Global for a brief period up here on that local syndicated UHF station. We got the NWA for at least a few weeks up here. I know it lasted a little bit longer than we got it up here because I found other episodes I wasn't able to watch on YouTube.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I thought that that was also a very interesting group. It seemed like he was struggling quite a bit to get the NWA afloat again. I mean, not that ever since the separation between WCW and the NWA, has struggled for almost 2 decades to stay afloat. But
Yeah, we had the talents
yeah,
and definitely had the minds there to put it together. But I don't know. Jim never seemed to be totally invested in it. And
right,
it did, the whole thing was just kind of like, throw it out there, and if it works, fine. If it doesn't, fine. That's how I kind of felt he was approaching it, instead of really going at it full blast. We for a little while there, we went to Chattanooga and taped some TV up there in conjunction with Jim Cornette and Smoky Mountain,
right, right.
and that was fun. I enjoyed that. But when we got back to Texas, it just didn't seem like he was as invested in promoting it as much as it needed to be. And
Right.
it turned out to be what it was. It didn't last very long.
I, for the most part, enjoyed it because it was, a lot of stuff that a lot of guys I grew up on. Maybe it was a little bit like maybe it was like 10 years too late, I guess, for some of the and there was too many changes, I guess, in the industry at that point.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
And
it was fun. I mean, we
yeah,
had Michael Hayes there and Tully Blanchard
yes,
and Kevin came back and worked and of course John Blayfield, my JBL, he was there. I can't remember everybody, but it had Ricky and Robert came in, and we had a good crew. It
yeah.
one of the lack of talent. It was our leadership, our ideas. It was, like I said, it was a promotional deficit really more than anything else.
Did you ever when Kevin started up or tried to restart the world class brand? Were you a part of that?
Yeah, yeah, that didn't work very long either. Well, the
No.
problem the problem with that off the bat was is they had lost Channel 11,
Mhm.
and so there was no TV, and without that, there was no chance that world class was going to start back up again.
Right.
So
Yeah.
we ran some spot shows and that kind of thing, but I can't remember. I'm bad about timing and that kind of thing, but I would say just a few months and that was done,
Yeah.
and then that after that's when Global came in.
Yeah. I remember reading about it back then in the I guess you could call them the dirt sheets or newsletters, whatever you want to call them. At
Yeah.
that time, and it was something that I wanted to see happen because I was a huge world class fan, but then nothing ever came of it. I guess he
Well,
also spoke about the.
I don't think Kevin ever really had his heart in being a businessman, a promotional owner, that kind of thing. And
Right.
I know he wanted it to work, but like I said, without TV and it just didn't have a chance.
Right. Right. Did you were you supposed to be a part of that or were you a part of the Kerry Von Erich tribute show? That was
Yeah.
I think it was kind of associated with Global, correct? Or was it in the dome?
Yeah, yeah, that was actually done during Global. Yeah, yeah. I was
Yeah.
I was I was in Japan when Kerry died. I was in the middle of
Right.
a tour over there, and in fact, I had 4 or 5 of our guys, our Dallas guys, there with me, and um, our Global guys, and I got the call about it. We're about halfway through the tour. I got the call, and I had to break the news to all the guys, and it was a downer. And we had to go through the rest of the tour. Couldn't come back. So we had to go through the rest of the tour and miss the funeral and not being
Yeah.
able to be there. It was hard, a tough couple of weeks. Um, and yeah, when I got back, they had pitched the idea of having the tribute, the memorial night, and my idea at the time was that I wasn't going to work any of the matches. So we brought David Manning back and Bronco back, and John Keaton was there, and I was just going to kind of run the back and help out, just kind of keep things going, that kind of thing. And when we were trying to get the main event together, which was Michael and I'm trying to remember. Michael and Buddy Jack, I think.
Okay.
And with I think Akbar was going to be in their corner, and then Chris Adams and Kevin and Fritz was going to be in their corner. And anyway, we were trying to get all that situated and laid out and everything. And Fritz came up to me and he said, "Who's working the last match, the main event?" And I said, "Well, I was going to put David Manning in there." And he said, "No." He said, "You're going to do it." I said, "Okay." I mean, when Fritz tells you something, you're just going to do it, you know. And I never asked him why or anything else. I just got my gear and started putting it on, you know. But that was the only match I worked that night. But I was there the whole night, yeah, trying to kind of keeping things running.
Was there any issue with David Manning after that being taken out of that match, or no? Or did he care?
Nothing after that I know of.
Right.
I mean, I don't want to talk about anybody or anything, but I found out there'd been some heat with Fritz and David, and
Wow.
I guess that was his thinking. That's how it was explained to me later on. You know,
Okay.
so I just kind of accepted that and went on.
Yeah, I heard that he was one of their bookers for quite some time, right?
Yeah, it wasn't really very long. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. In fact, even Bruiser took over the book there for a little while. He found out he didn't like that very much. But yeah, David booked for a short time there. Yeah,
Right. I've tried to reach out to him for an interview and no response. I'd really like to talk to him. I don't know any other way, really, but you know,
yeah.
it is. I try my best to try to reach out to talent.
Yeah.
So, so what else do you? Go ahead. Sorry.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. Oh, I thought I cut you off. Sorry about that.
No, not at all.
So I was wondering what I guess what are you up to these days?
Well, like I said, I'm working with there's a teaching group in Louisiana. Danny Davis, a old friend of mine from Global. It has I guess about 20 students or something. And I go down there and help him about once a month with. He runs a show, and I'm trying to help them a little bit. And I'm working with, like I said, the Texas style wrestling now. Gotten more involved with them recently, and that's something that I'm trying to build into that alternative we talked about. And there's a lot of good people involved, and I've got some positive vibes going with that right now. I'm hoping that works out. Just keep trying to contribute when I can, you know, and pass it along some of the younger guys when I get a chance to. I do a few clinics here and there, and that sort of thing. And you know, it's been real interesting. I got this movie coming out, you know, and that's gotten a lot of people interested again. So it's keeping me busy.
What do you think about the movie coming out? I'm very interested in the movie.
Well,
which of course we're talking about the Iron Claw, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, when you're doing it, you know, I was involved in the wrestling scenes, so I don't. I it's kind of hard to speak to the whole plot, the whole script, because you get little pieces of script. You know, when you're doing those things, you don't get to see the whole thing.
Right.
But I think people are going to be surprised that it's not really a wrestling movie. It's really drama, and it just has wrestling involved in it. And what we did, Chavo Guerrero was the director of the wrestling, and I helped, you know, with some of the advice and that kind of thing in it, and did some of the scenes, and it was really well done. I mean, we really took a lot of care in making sure that those wrestling scenes were as real and as authentic as they could be, and I think people are going to see that when they see the movie. But I think the movie itself is going to be more about what I got. Just reading the pieces of script that I got is I think it was more about Kevin and how he handled the adversities and the tragedies and the fact that he being the older son, and really wasn't the one that got the favored situation sometimes. I mean, David was the guy that was kind of pushed to be the next world champion at first, and after David died, then it was Kerry,
Right.
and so Kevin really never got that, I guess, that push or that spot, and I think just from the bits and pieces I read that's probably a little bit about what the movie is about and how he handled that, and of course that whole Von Erich story, the
The
tragedy,
tragedy. Yeah.
yeah, and all that. So I think people are going to be surprised that it's not going to be one of these like The Wrestler or something like that. It's going to be
Right.
it's going to be a real drama.
Yeah, I know a lot of people want to see it. I'm not exactly sure if they understand what it's going to be about. It's
Yeah,
not going to be a movie. Like I said, like you said, it's going to be a drama, basically
yeah,
about a family that was in wrestling, and
yeah.
I'm really looking forward to it. I really want to see it because I was a huge Von Erichs fan growing up. So, it's something I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, we just got just this couple of days ago, we got the invites for the world premiere, which is in November the 8th in Dallas, and then the opening for public is December 22nd. That's going to be
Right.
the worldwide release, and I think it's going to surprise a lot of people. I
Yeah.
really do. It's got a strong studio behind it, and I know Sean Durkin, who wrote and directed it. He was very dedicated to getting things right as much as he could. So I think people are going to be surprised by this movie.
Good. Good. Well, I can't wait to see it either. It's coming out, like you said, December 22nd.
December 22nd.
So,
Yeah. Yeah.
yep. Yep. Well, James, I want to thank you for joining me for this hour. And
Oh,
I truly
absolutely.
appreciate you taking the time out of your day to sit here with me.
Yeah, not a problem at all. I enjoyed it.
Yeah. Do you want to tell people where they can find you on possibly social media?
Well, I'm not a big social media guy. I mean, I do have a Twitter account. I can't even tell you what it is. I'm on Facebook if somebody's looking for me, but I don't get on there a lot other than promoting what I'm doing. And once in a while I'll post something personal, but I'm not hard to find if somebody wants to catch me. I'm pretty easy to get a hold of. So,
All right.
and if somebody sends me something, I'll always answer.
All right. And don't forget, you should all check out the Texas style wrestling that James is involved in. So,
Yeah, TSW. I think, like I said, right now they're showing a lot of stuff that was taped before I got involved. But I think once we get this thing rolling the way we want to roll, I think it's going to be something that real wrestling fans want to see.
well, I'm looking forward to checking it out. I'm gonna do so tonight after we get out of here. So,
All right.